Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, we're holding the portion of Shoftim. We're holding, today is Monday, the second reading, chapter 17, verse number 14. When you come to the land, which God has given to you, and you will possess it. Yeshavta, you'll settle in it. And you'll say, Asima alai melech. You'll say, we want to have a king. Same tasim melech echol hagoyim asher sivitzei, like all the nations that are around us. Same tasim alecha melech. You should put upon yourself a king. Asher yivcha Hashem alekecha boi, which God has chosen you. Mikerev achecha, from the midst of your brothers. Tasim alecha melech. You should put upon yourself a king. Lo yisuchal, you may not. Lasis alecha ish nachri, you may not put upon yourself a foreign king. Asher lo yachicha, who is not your brother. Verse number 16. We shouldn't have too many horses. He shouldn't return the people back to Egypt. Because he wants to have horses, special horses. And God has already told you that you shouldn't return back to Egypt. Nash says, but only as required for his chariots and riders, so as not to bring the people back to Egypt, since horses come from there. As it says about King Salih, it says by Shlomo Melech, a chariot was imported out of Egypt for 600 shekel, silver shekel, and a horse for 150. We shouldn't have too many wives. Should, in order not to, that his heart not be distracted. The Kesef is Zav, he should not acquire too much silver and gold for himself. She says, in those days, you were allowed to have more wives than one. So the amount that the Gemara says, we know that it's 18. The most the king can take is 18 wives. Can I know that? But you find like King David, he had 6 wives, and it's told that and this was not insufficient. I'll add for you the same amount, he had 12, 18 wives. He must not acquire much silver and gold for himself, only necessary to maintain his army. Verse 18, he will sit on the throne of his kingship. Kosela's Mishnah Teda says he has to write for himself a Sefer Teda, or a Sefer on a scroll. In the care of the Levites and the priests. Now she says, if he carries out this commandments, then he writes a Teda and he says, I'm going to carry out this Teda, then it's Kedailai, then it's worth it for him that he should stay in his kingship. It's Mishnah Teda. What does it mean? A second Teda, meaning 2 Teda scrolls. He has to have 2. One that is kept in his archives, and one that accompanies wherever he goes. So he had 2 Tedas. Every king that became a king, he had to write 2 Sefer Tedas. One that he put away, and one that he actually carried with him, wherever he went. Onkelos translates Mishnah's Pas Shegen, interpreting Mishnah relates Shinun, speech. So Mishnah Teda, the speech of Teda, means that the king has to have the Teda near him. He has to be fluent, and he makes sure that he knows the Teda. Well, you should be constant with it. And you should read from it all his days. So the king should learn the Teda and should have fear of God. Lishmer is called Divra Teda, so you should keep the entire Teda, Mesachukim and its laws, say something to do. Says Divra Teda Kamashma, literally, means literally. The king should learn Teda, and it should be something that it's by him a second nature. So he shows his heart to become too haughty over his brothers. He has to have humility. So he also shouldn't divide himself in the mitzvahs, either right or to left. They shall have a long kingship. Who not only him, also his children will follow him. He can't be sold in the midst of the Jewish people. mitzvah. Not just even a minor instruction. But the king has to show the people that he has reverence to God. That's the importance. When the people see that the king has reverence to God, they have reverence to God. So king has to be careful even with a simple mitzvah. Rashi says, in order to prolong his life from the positive statement, you can infer a negative. And so we find during that Shola Navi, that Shmuel says to him, you must wait 7 days until I come to offer a scent offering. Later it's written, Shaul waited 7 days, but did not keep his promise. And he didn't wait the entire day. He had not yet finished offering up this offering when Shmuel Navi arrived. He said, you're foolish. You not keep, now your reign will not endure. If you cannot follow the basic things, you think you're a king and you do whatever you want. Since a Navi told you to wait, and Pasha couldn't wait a couple of minutes, then you don't deserve to be a king. And you're going to lose your kingship. That's what happened. He was thus learning that he was punished for failing to comply with a minor instruction. Not like he didn't do a mitzvah say. Simply didn't do a simple thing that Shmuel Hanavi asked of him, and he basically lost his kingship. Banav, this informs us that if his son is qualified to be king, he takes over somebody else. But not always a son deserves to be a king after his father just because he's the son of a king. And that completes the Chumash for today. Now go to the Tanya of the day. We start the 10th letter of the Alter Rebbe. 10th letter. After greetings of life and peace. May my opening words rouse the ear that hears the life-giving to admonish, which God Himself admonished through admonished the Jewish people through His prophet. The prophet said, "Chazdei Hashem, the kindness of God, Kilei Samnu, Chazdei Hashem, the kindness of God has surely not ended." Kilei Samnu. So the Alter Rebbe is going to go on the word Kilei Samnu because it has not ended. Surprisingly, the Hebrew word used is Tamnu, the first person plural, which would make the phrase mean we have not been brought to an end. We have not been, some knew we are not that the chesed didn't come to them, but we have not been brought to an end. The verse sought to say that the kindness have not ended, rather than because God's kindness we have not been brought to an end. It should surely say the word tamu, kli tamu. If it goes on the concept of the kindness, then it should have said a different word, tamu. It's a kli samnu, we haven't come to an end. In the third person plural, as the Alter Rebbe goes on to point out, v'hav leima kli tam samu, because kli samnu. So, what is the meaning of this word? If we translate kilei samnu, because surely not ended, the chesed, the kindness of God has not ended, then it should have said kilei samu. You have another verse, it says, Kilei samu rachasadecha, your kindness has not ended. So you see the verse says samu. So why is it over here doesn't say the same thing? Chaz Hashem, Kilei samu. Kindness of God has not come to an end. Alter Rebbe answers, the verse indeed implies two ideas. Because Kilei Samnu actually means two things. We translate it simply that the kindness has not ended. That's how we translate, as you see in the beginning. Translate it that way. Number two is we stand in need of God's kindness. Kilei Samnu, because we are not perfect or complete. So there's a third interpretation, Kilei Samnu. The second interpretation means we're not tamim. I will soon explain. So we have another interpretation, Kilei Samnu, because we're not perfect. So the Alter Rebbe says, we'll understand all this. Three expressions and three meanings in the word Kilei Samnu. whether it means that the chesed has not, the kindness has not come to an end, or that we have not come to an end, or because we're not complete. You, HaKadosh, will understand all this in the light what's written in the Zohar. Is chesed, is chesed. There are two kinds of kindness. There are two types of chesed. We have two kinds of chesed. Is chesed olam? There's a chesed of the world, olam, literally a word like chesed. Like we say in davening, avas olam. That's what it says in the Chabad Siddur, avas olam, before the Shema. Avas olam, the ava that's through the world. It's a world ava. A degree of kindness that is limited to the world, to temporal kind bonds. Is chesed Allah, and then you have a superior kindness. Ava like Ava Rabba, a great kindness. Meaning Rav chesed, a boundless kindness. Since it's man's spiritual service that draws down God's kindness, Alter Rebbe now goes on to explain what manner of service elicits a downflow of chesed in the world, and what manner of service draws down a boundless degree of Rav chesed. In a Mudah Zois, it's well known. A Teira Nikra Oiz. Teira is called Oiz. Ein Oiz, the Gemara says, Ein Oiz Ela Teira. Hashem Oiz, the Gemara says, Hashem Oiz Li'ama Yitin. The Eibishter gave the people strength. That's the simple meaning of Oiz. And Ein Oiz Ela Teira. The Gemara says, the concept, what it means God gave the Jewish people strength. He gave them the Teira. He gave them the Teira. That's the verse, God grants strength to his people. Gemara in Tractate Zvach comments the strength to listen to Torah. What means that God didn't give them bombs, he gave them the Torah. He gave Jewish people the Torah, and that is a Jewish strength. True Lashon Gevura, which is an expression of strength. Literally, Gevura means might. More specifically, it's the name of the Sfira. It signifies the absence of chesed, the withholding of the beneficence, as regulated by divine attribute of justice. Gevura, justice. A lot of names to it. Strength, might, justice. As our rabbis of blessed memory said, Tayag mitzvahs nemel Moshe misinai mipi Gevura. There are 613 commandments that Moshe Rabbeinu said in the name of Mipi Gevura, from the mouth of God. So the 630 commandments were ordered from God as he's manifested in Gevura, Mipi Gevura. We call God Gevura, Mipi Gevura. Eibishter said the 600 commandments from Gevura, because Gevura is strength. Din, justice. He manifests on the attribute of Gevura, for which reason he himself is referred to by the name of this attribute, Mipi Gevura. So we call God by the name of this attribute, Gevura. And then it's written in another verse, it says, Miminoi, from my right hand, Eish Das Lame, the Torah fire was given unto them. Eish Das, the fire of God was given unto them from the right hand of God. It's written in fire, which is expression of the attribute of Gevura. So we see that Torah is Gevura, strength. This means, Pirush, Alter Rebbe introduces an explanation which anticipates the following question. Since the Torah of God is given his right hand shows on chesed, which connotates the concept of chesed, benevolence. And indeed, the Torah is called Torah's chesed, the Torah of kindness. So what's going on? Is it Torah kindness or the Torah's eish? Mayim is chesed. Eish is gevura. So what is it? One or the other. How then can above quoted very process just to say that the Torah is expression of fire, gevura? So what is the meaning? So the answer is the source and the root of Torah is miminai, is from the right, is chesed, the concept of chesed, which in Kabbalah is the right side. So Torah, the root of Torah is chesed. And the beauty of Torah is chesed. Meaning the illustration, that God, that we can bring down godliness in the world is a concept of giving. That's chesed. The Eibishter gave it to Kodesh Baruch Hu Zakis is so. The Eibishter wanted to give merit lefichem Torah. That's why he gave the Torah. That's chesed. That's a chesed. We have to look at the Torah as the greatest chesed that the Eibishter gave to the world, that a yid can connect to God through Torah, and it can bring Torah down to the world. That's the greatest chesed. We have the capability through Torah learning. We bring down the light of God within the upper worlds and the lower worlds. The greatest chesed. Idea Adam, through a human being, when he brings the light upon himself, by learning Torah and by doing the 248 positive commandments, which the Zohar says these are the 240 limbs of the king, organs of the king. What means the organs of the king? Means the 248 vessels and garments, so that the Eibishter, that the light of God can come into the world. So the Eibishter gave us as the light of the world, godliness in the world. The Eibishter gave us vessels to put this light in. To the radiance. But I'm from the infinite light of God, which is clothed in every mitzvah that we do. So each of the commandments serves a receptor or a vehicle for the particular divine illumination that vests itself in it, just as each organ of the body is a vehicle or receptor for a particular faculty of the soul, the eye for the power of the sight, the ear for the power of the ear, and so on. Baruch Hashem, we should all have healthy vessels, the vessel of hearing, the vessel of seeing, the vessel of speaking, etc., etc. Because without those vessels, you might have the energy of sight. Without the vessel of sight, you're not going to see, God forbid. So too, without the concept of godliness having a vessel, we wouldn't be able to bring godliness into the world. And that's the greatest chus that we have, to bring godliness into the world. And as known, from this light, awe and love are drawn down upon a person. And each person, each mitzvah, each command. So the Torah and its commandments are thus downflows. That's the beauty of chesed. The concept of chesed is giving, even giving to somebody who doesn't deserve, doesn't per se deserve, is giving to somebody who doesn't have anything. We don't have the capability of giving, of bringing godliness into the world. Who are we that we can bring godliness into the world? And the answer is, the Eibishter gave us a mitzvah. And with that mitzvah, the Eibishter gave us a chesed. That's the ultimate chesed. That's why it says mitzvah, schar mitzvah is mitzvah. The true reward of a mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. The Eibishter gave a chesed that we can do this mitzvah and bring godliness into the world. So we can't come up with our own mitzvah. That's what the Torah says in the last expression. I'll take off and I'll add. Because how can you take off a mitzvah? And how can you add? Who are you to add a mitzvah? You don't know. You can't make a vessel that you don't know what the godliness that needs to come and how it comes in, etc. So you need to have the Torah that tells you what the vessel is. That's the beauty of chesed. And that's the Torah. The Torah wants to come, is compared to water that comes from a very high place to a very low place. And the vessel is the island of Torah. I that I'm in a very low place in this physical world, bring down the Torah as a conduit for the Torah. So what in the Gevurah? Then this downflow has to be first vested in God's attribute of Gevurah. Which is referred to a fire. Why you need that? It reflects on the contraction of God's light, so that it can come down into this physical world. So that it'll be able to actually this Gevurah, that's why Sidis learns that this Gevurah is real chesed. Because without this Gevurah, The light of God would not be able to vest itself into this physical world. And therefore, the Eibishter did the ultimate chesed, that he created the concept of Gevura. That mitzamtzim, the light that I bring down, and now this light can be mislabish begashmis, can come down and clothe itself physically in a physical world. Sherubim kekulam b'dvarim achumrim. Majority of all mitzvahs are in pashut physical things. Tzitzis, like putting on tzitzis made out of wool, tefillin, like tefillin made out of leather, karbanos, all the sacrificial offerings, cows, tzedakah, of physical, all these physical coins and dollars, etc. Even when it comes to mitzvahs, that to him it's more spiritual. Like the concept of fear and love, which is not a physical thing, it's an emotion. Nevertheless, a human being's love and fear is very limited. So it's physical in comparison to spirituality. It's unlimited. It's not an infinite thing. Because truly, to have for man to sustain in his heart an intense love of God without end, a human being would not be able to do it. And to stay physical, I feel it. 1 second. That's what happened to the sons of Aaron. They wanted to have a spiritual, a true spiritual moment, and they had that spiritual moment and left their physical body. Intense, indeed, so intense of a love would surely cause a soul to take flight. The sages said, time of Matan Torah, when the Jewish people received Torah, them was a revelation of God. That the Eibishter revealed himself to the Jewish people. What happened? The Gemara says, they all died. All their souls took flight, etc. So at the time, God restored their souls within the dew that He will use to revive the dead. In the time of Mashiach. See, however, that the illumination itself was so intense that their souls could not remain within their bodies for even a moment. They all died. Since the love presently experienced by the soul within the body does not cause it to flee, Baruch Hashem, and the soul stays in the body, it follows that this love is inherently limited. Baruch Hashem, that this love is inherently limited. This also applies to the awe and love which is experienced as a result of the divinity that is revealed in the mitzvah. We do a mitzvah, and we learn the whole mitzvah is tzafsa v'chibah, is a connection between us and God, and we all stay human. We don't lose ourselves. This is the case because the flow of God, which is sent through the Torah, and its finite commandments are restrained by the attribute of Gevura. And that's the need of Gevura. You now understand that the two stages implied from the above quoted verse initially. The Torah indeed proceeds from the right hand of God, which is Chesed, and the boundless kindness of the attribute of Chesed. But it's then communicated to us in the mouth of Gevura, Torah's fire, as a law which is limited and restricted to the divine attribute of God. So it is able to find expression in the finitude of this. That's the beauty of this concept. But we're in the middle of a concept, so shall continue Bezrat Hashem tomorrow, this beautiful letter of the Alter Rebbe. Friends, today is the first day of the month, Rosh Chodesh El. So it's first of all chapter 1 to chapter 9. The Rebbe writes today in Yom Yom, when the Tzemach Tzedek was the third Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was a grandson of Alter Rebbe. Alter Rebbe brought him up. His mother died when he was a young child. When he was 9 years old, the Alter Rebbe said to him, I received from my Rebbe, the Maggid, who received from his Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov, in the name of the well-known Rebbe, that's from this known Rebbe, that means what Pia Shiloni, who taught the Baal Shem Tov, that from the second day of Rosh Chodesh Elul today until Yom Kippur, we say 3 chapters of Tillim every day. That means today you said the day is chapter 1 to chapter 9. And then you should repeat chapter 1, 2, and 3. Tomorrow, you should say chapter 4, 5, and 6, and so on. We want to finish the whole Tillim again from today until Yom Kippur. So there's a schedule. Today you do, from today until Yom Kippur, you do 3 chapters every single day. On Yom Kippur, you do 36 chapters. How do you divide it? 9 before Kol Nidre, 9 before going to sleep, 9 after Musaf, and 9 after Nila. So ultimately, by the end of Nila, from today to the end of Nila, you will, if you go with this schedule, you will finish the whole Tillim from the beginning to the end. That connects this whole month to the month to Rosh Hashanah, and especially Yom Kippur. It completes the whole process. And the Rebbe says whoever did not start on the second day of Rosh Chodesh is to start with the Tillim of the particular day. He realizes the mission. So let's say you forget today. So tomorrow, you should say the next 3 chapters, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then go back and say 1, 2, and 3. So if you skip, if I mistake, one day you miss down the road, say the day, what the day is, whatever the day is, and then repeat the day that you missed. And that's, again, we're trying to accomplish that from today until after Yom Kippur, we should say the whole Tillim, from the beginning to the end. So that's the way we do it. And this was given down by Baal Shem Tov to do this custom. And that's what we do. Realize there's a mission to complete the missing Tillim later. And that's the Yom Yom of today. Also, the custom is to blow the shofar. I forgot to bring my shofar. Somebody has a shofar, wants to blow the shofar, Gezum Teheit. They should blow the shofar so we can all hear the blowing of the shofar. And
also at 27. Don't we have to say 27 twice?
That's in davening, not as Tillim. That's in davening. It's part of davening.
Okay. We're busy as a Chassidim. We're very busy this month.